Chapter 1. The Last Stand. The alarms blared through the corridors of the SS Vanguard as Captain Lara Novak rushed to the bridge. Earth's last battleship, a symbol of humanity's defiance against the overwhelming might of the Zorgon Empire, was under attack. "Status report!" Lara barked as she entered the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen displaying the vast expanse of space. "Captain, we're outnumbered and outgunned," Commander Xander Reeves replied, his voice strained. "The Zorgons have us surrounded. Their weapons are far superior to ours." Lara clenched her jaw, assessing the dire situation. The Zorgons had already conquered most of the known galaxy, their advanced technology and ruthless tactics making them an unstoppable force. Earth, once a thriving hub of civilization, now lay in ruins, its population scattered across the stars. "We can't let them win," Lara said, her voice filled with determination. "We're the last line of defense. If we fall, humanity falls with us." She turned to her crew, a mix of battle-hardened veterans and fresh-faced recruits, each bearing the scars of the relentless war against the Zorgons. "Divert all power to shields and weapons," Lara ordered. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We'll show these bastards what humans are made of." The crew sprang into action, their fingers flying across consoles as they carried out their captain's commands. The Vanguard shuddered as the first volley of Zorgon energy beams slammed into its shields. "Shields holding at 70%, Lieutenant Mira Singh reported from her station. "But they won't last long against this kind of firepower." Lara gripped the armrests of her chair, her mind racing. They were hopelessly outmatched, but surrender was not an option. The Zorgons had already proven their cruelty, enslaving entire species and harvesting their resources without mercy. "Target their lead ship," Lara commanded. "Fire everything we've got." The Vanguard's weapons systems came to life, launching a barrage of missiles and energy beams toward the Zorgon flagship. The enemy ship's shields flickered under the onslaught, but held firm. "Minimal damage to their shields," Xander reported grimly. "They're retaliating." The bridge shook violently as the Zorgon counterattack hit home, sparks flying from overloaded consoles. Alarms blared, and the acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled the air. "Shields down to 30%, Mira shouted over the chaos. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 5. Lara felt a cold sense of dread settle in her stomach. They were fighting a losing battle, and she knew it. But even in the face of certain defeat, she refused to give up. "Reroute emergency power to shields," she ordered, "and prepare the escape pods. If we can't win this fight, we'll make damn sure the Zorgons remember us." As the crew scrambled to follow her orders, Lara closed her eyes for a brief moment, silently praying to whatever gods might be listening. She knew that this could be their last stand, but she was determined to make it count. The Vanguard shuddered again, its hull groaning under the relentless assault of the Zorgon fleet. Lara opened her eyes, a fierce determination burning within her. "For Earth," she whispered, steeling herself for the battle to come. "For humanity." And with that, the SS Vanguard charged forward, ready to face its destiny among the stars. Chapter 2. A Daring Escape. The Vanguard shook violently as another barrage of Zorgon weapons slammed into its already weakened shields. Captain Lara Novak held onto her chair, her knuckles turning white as she watched the view screen before her. The enemy fleet loomed ominously, their ships dwarfing the battered human battleship. "Shields down to 15%, Lieutenant Mira Singh shouted, her voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. "We can't take much more of this." Lara gritted her teeth, her mind racing to find a solution. They had fought valiantly, but the odds were stacked against them. The Zorgon Empire's superior technology and overwhelming numbers had pushed the Vanguard to its limits. "Captain, the escape pods are ready," Commander Xander Reeves reported, his face grim. "But we can't abandon the Vanguard. It's our last hope." Lara closed her eyes for a moment, the weight of her decision crushing her. She knew that the Vanguard was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's resilience and determination. But she also knew that the lives of her crew were her responsibility. "Prepare to evacuate," Lara ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We'll set the Vanguard's reactor to overload and use the explosion as cover for our escape." The bridge fell silent, the crew stunned by their captain's words. Xander stepped forward, his eyes meeting Lara's. "Captain, are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice low. "The Vanguard is all we have left." Lara placed a hand on Xander's shoulder, her gaze unwavering. "We have to survive, Xander. We can't fight the Zorgons if we're dead. We'll live to fight another day." Reluctantly, Xander nodded, turning to the crew. "You heard the captain. Prepare for evacuation. Set the reactor to overload on my command." As the crew hurried to their stations, Lara took one last look at the bridge of the Vanguard. The ship had been her home for years, a beacon of hope in a galaxy consumed by darkness. But now, it would become their salvation in a different way. "Reactor overload sequence initiated," Mira reported, her fingers flying across her console. "We have 5 minutes until detonation." Lara nodded, her heart heavy. "All hands, abandon ship, make your way to the escape pods." The crew quickly filed out of the bridge, their footsteps echoing through the corridors as they raced towards the escape pods. Lara and Xander were the last to leave, their eyes meeting in a silent acknowledgement of the sacrifice they were about to make. As they sealed themselves into their escape pod, Lara felt a pang of regret. The Vanguard had been more than just a ship. It had been a symbol of hope, a reminder that humanity would never give up, no matter the odds. The escape pod jettisoned away from the Vanguard, joining a cluster of other pods as they sped away from the doomed battleship. Lara watched through the small viewport as the Vanguard grew smaller, the Zorgon fleet closing in on its prey. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from the Vanguard's core, the ship exploding in a dazzling display of fire and debris. The shockwave slammed into the Zorgon fleet, sending their ships tumbling and buying the escape pods precious time to flee. As the escape pods raced away from the battlefield, Lara felt a mixture of grief and determination. They had lost the Vanguard, but they had not lost the war. The fight for humanity's survival was far from over, and Lara knew that they would need every ounce of courage and ingenuity to overcome the challenges that lay ahead. In the silence of the escape pod, Lara made a silent vow. She would not rest until the Zorgon Empire was defeated, and humanity was safe once more. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but she was ready to face whatever lay in store. For now, they had survived, and as long as they had breath in their bodies, they would continue to fight, to hope, and to dream of a future free from the tyranny of the Zorgons. Chapter 3. Refuge in the Shadows. The escape pods drifted through the void of space, the remnants of the Vanguard's crew huddled inside, their hearts heavy with the weight of their loss. Captain Lara Novak sat in silence, her eyes fixed on the small viewport, watching the distant stars flicker like candles in the wind. Beside her, Commander Xander Reeves tapped away at the pod's console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Captain, I'm picking up a faint signal," he said, his voice tinged with hope. "It's coming from a nearby system just outside of Zorgon-controlled space." Lara leaned forward, her eyes scanning the readout. "Can you get a fix on the source?" Xander shook his head. "Not from here. We'll need to get closer." Lara hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks. They were vulnerable out here, exposed to the dangers of the unknown. But they had no choice. They needed supplies, repairs, and a place to regroup. "Set a course," she ordered, her voice firm, "and alert the other pods. We're going in." As the escape pods changed course, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She had spent years fighting the Zorgons, learning their tactics and strategies, and now, adrift in the vastness of space, she felt like a mouse being stalked by a cat. Hours passed as the pods drew closer to the source of the signal. Lara's eyes widened as a small, unassuming planet came into view. It was a world of mottled greens and browns, with wispy clouds swirling across its surface. "There's a settlement down there," Xander said, pointing to a cluster of lights on the planet's surface. "It's not much, but it's a start." Lara nodded, a glimmer of hope sparking in her chest. "Take us down." The escape pods descended through the planet's atmosphere, the heat of re-entry causing the hulls to glow a dull orange. As they approached the settlement, Lara could see ramshackle buildings and makeshift streets, a far cry from the gleaming cities of Earth. The pods touched down on the outskirts of the settlement, kicking up clouds of dust and debris. Lara was the first to emerge, her eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. A group of settlers approached, their faces weathered and worn. They eyed the newcomers with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Who are you?" one of them asked, his voice gruff. Lara stepped forward, her chin held high. "I am Captain Lara Novak of the SS Vanguard. We are survivors, seeking refuge from the Zorgon Empire." The settlers exchanged glances, their expressions softening. "You're not the first to come here," the man said, "and you won't be the last. The Zorgons have driven many from their homes." Lara felt a pang of empathy. She knew all too well the pain of losing everything to the Zorgons. "We don't mean to impose," she said. "We only need a place to rest and repair our ships." The man nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "You can stay, but keep a low profile. The Zorgons have eyes everywhere, even in places like this." As the settlers led them into the heart of the settlement, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. The Zorgons were relentless, and they would stop at nothing to crush any resistance to their rule. But for now, they had found a moment of respite, a chance to catch their breath and gather their strength. And as Lara looked around at the faces of her crew, she knew that they would never give up. They would fight on, no matter the cost. For in the shadows of the galaxy, hope still burned bright, and as long as there were those willing to stand against the darkness, the light would never be extinguished. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Dark. As the crew settled into their temporary refuge, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The settlers had welcomed them, but there was an undercurrent of fear that permeated the ramshackle buildings and dusty streets. Lara and Xander sat huddled in a dimly lit room, poring over star charts and discussing their next move. "We can't stay here forever," Xander said, his voice low. "The Zorgons will find us eventually." Lara nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "We need to find allies, gather resources. There must be others out there who are fighting against the Zorgons." Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Lara and Xander exchanged a glance, their hands instinctively reaching for their weapons. "Come in," Lara called out, her voice steady. The door creaked open, revealing a hooded figure. "Captain Novak," the figure said, their voice barely above a whisper. "I have information that may be of use to you." Lara's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" The figure stepped forward, lowering their hood to reveal a woman with piercing green eyes and a jagged scar running down her cheek. "My name is Arya. I'm part of a network of rebels who have been fighting against the Zorgons for years." Xander leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What kind of information do you have?" Arya glanced around the room as if checking for hidden listeners. "There are rumors of a weapon, a device that could turn the tide of the war. They say it was created by a scientist named Dr. Elara Voss, who disappeared years ago." Lara's heart skipped a beat. She had heard whispers of Dr. Voss and her work, but had never been able to confirm the rumors. Where is this weapon? Arya shook her head. No one knows for sure, but there are clues scattered across the galaxy. If you can find them, they may lead you to the device. Lara exchanged a glance with Xander, a glimmer of hope sparking in her chest. Thank you, Arya. This information could change everything. Arya nodded, pulling her hood back up over her head. Be careful, Captain. The Zorgans have spies everywhere. Trust no one. With that, she slipped out of the room, leaving Lara and Xander alone with their thoughts. Do you think it's true? Xander asked, his voice tinged with doubt. A weapon that could defeat the Zorgans? Lara stood up, her eyes blazing with determination. We have to find out. It's the only hope we have left. As they set to work, gathering supplies and making preparations for their journey, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The settlers moved about their daily lives, but there was a tension in the air, a sense that something was coming. And then, in the dead of night, the attack came. Zorgan ships descended from the sky, their weapons blazing as they laid waste to the settlement. Lara and her crew fought back, their weapons flashing in the darkness, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. As the settlement burned around them, Lara made a decision. They had to leave, to find the clues that would lead them to Dr. Voss's weapon. It was their only chance to save what was left of humanity. With heavy hearts, they boarded their escape pods once more, leaving the smoldering ruins of the settlement behind. But as they rose into the sky, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, filled with danger and uncertainty. But they had to keep going, to keep fighting. For in the darkest corners of the galaxy, hope still lingered. And as long as there were those willing to seek it out, the light would never be extinguished. Chapter 5. The Hunt Begins. The escape pods hurtled through the inky blackness of space, their occupants still reeling from the sudden attack on the settlement. Lara sat in the pilot's seat of the lead pod, her knuckles white as she gripped the controls. The image of the burning buildings and fleeing settlers was seared into her mind, a stark reminder of the Zorgon's relentless pursuit. Where to now, Captain? Xander's voice crackled over the comm, his face appearing on the small screen to her right. Lara took a deep breath, trying to center herself. We follow the clues Arya gave us. Dr. Voss's weapon is our only hope now. She brought up the star chart on her display, studying the coordinates Arya had provided. The first clue was hidden on a remote planet in the Orion system, a place called Nexus Prime. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. As the crew set their course for Nexus Prime, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The Zorgons had eyes everywhere, and she knew they would stop at nothing to prevent her from finding the weapon. Hours turned into days as they navigated the treacherous depths of space, dodging Zorgon patrols and skirmishing with their fighters. The crew worked tirelessly to keep the escape pods running, patching up damage and rationing their meager supplies. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they arrived at Nexus Prime. The planet was a desolate wasteland, its surface scarred by centuries of war and neglect. As they descended through the atmosphere, Lara couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden beneath the rubble and ruins. They landed in the shadow of a crumbling building, its walls pockmarked with blast holes and scorch marks. Lara and Xander led the way, their weapons at the ready as they picked their way through the debris. Suddenly, a glint of metal caught Lara's eye. She knelt down, brushing aside a layer of dust to reveal a small, intricately carved box. Her heart raced as she opened it, revealing a small data chip nestled inside. "This must be the first clue," she breathed, holding up the chip for Xander to see. But before they could examine it further, a burst of laser fire erupted from a nearby building. Zorgan soldiers poured out from the shadows, their weapons blazing as they charged towards Lara and her crew. "Take cover!" Lara shouted, diving behind a pile of rubble as the air around them filled with the sizzling hiss of energy weapons. The crew fought back with everything they had, their own weapons flashing in the dim light. But the Zorgans kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Just as all hope seemed lost, a sleek black ship appeared on the horizon, its engines roaring as it swooped down towards the battlefield. Lara watched in awe as it opened fire on the Zorgans, its weapons cutting through their ranks like a hot knife through butter. The ship landed nearby, its ramp lowering to reveal a familiar figure. It was Arya, her green eyes flashing with determination as she beckoned for Lara and her crew to follow. "Come on!" she shouted over the din of battle. "We don't have much time!" Lara and her crew raced towards the ship, dodging laser fire and leaping over fallen debris. As they scrambled aboard, Arya hit the controls, sending the ship rocketing into the sky. "I thought you said you were part of a rebel network," Lara panted, collapsing into a seat as the ship sped away from Nexus Prime. Arya smiled grimly. "I am. But sometimes, even rebels need a little help from the shadows." As the ship disappeared into the depths of space, Lara knew that their journey was far from over. But with the first clue in hand and new allies at their side, she felt a glimmer of hope stirring in her heart. The hunt for Dr. Voss's weapon had begun, and she would not rest until it was found. Chapter 6. Shadows and Secrets. The sleek black ship streaked through the void, its occupants still reeling from their narrow escape on Nexus Prime. Lara sat in the co-pilot's seat beside Arya, her mind racing as she tried to process everything that had happened. "Thank you for the rescue," Lara said, glancing over at Arya. "But how did you know we were in trouble?" Arya's lips curled into a cryptic smile. "Let's just say I have my sources. The Zorgons aren't the only ones with eyes and ears across the galaxy." Lara nodded, still wary but grateful for the help. She pulled out the data chip they had retrieved from Nexus Prime, turning it over in her hands. "So, where to next?" Arya tapped a few commands into the ship's console, bringing up a holographic star map. The chip contains coordinates to a remote asteroid field in the Sigma Quadrant. It's a treacherous area filled with space pirates and smugglers. But if the rumors are true, that's where we'll find the next piece of the puzzle. Lara's crew gathered around, their faces a mix of determination and apprehension. They knew the risks, but they also knew what was at stake. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. As the ship navigated through the asteroid field, dodging rogue space rocks and debris, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadows seemed to shift and twist, as if hiding unseen dangers. Suddenly, a blast rocked the ship, sending everyone stumbling. Alarms blared as Arya frantically worked the controls. "We're under attack!" she shouted. "Pirates!" A swarm of small, agile ships emerged from behind the asteroids, their weapons blazing. Lara and her crew rushed to man the ship's defenses, returning fire as best they could. The battle was fierce, with the pirate ships darting in and out of the asteroids, using them as cover. But Arya was a skilled pilot, weaving through the field with deft precision. As the last pirate ship exploded in a fiery blaze, Arya brought the ship in for a landing on a large, pockmarked asteroid. "The coordinates lead here," she said, her voice tight with tension. Let's hope it was worth it. Lara and Xander stepped out onto the asteroid's surface, their weapons at the ready. The landscape was barren and lifeless, with jagged rocks and deep crevasses stretching out before them. They followed the coordinates, picking their way carefully across the treacherous terrain. Finally, they reached a small cave entrance, hidden deep within a narrow crevasse. Inside, they found a small, ancient-looking device, its surface covered in intricate carvings. Lara's heart raced as she picked it up, realizing that it was another piece of the puzzle. But as they turned to leave, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a grizzled old man, his face weathered and scarred. "You seek the weapon of Dr. Voss," he rasped, his voice echoing in the confines of the cave. Lara and Xander exchanged a wary glance. "Who are you?" Lara asked, her hand tightening on her weapon. The old man chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "A relic of a bygone age, much like the device you hold in your hands. But I know the secrets of the weapon and the terrible price that must be paid to wield it." Lara's mind raced, trying to process the implications of the old man's words. But before she could ask any more questions, the sound of approaching ships filled the air. "The Zorgons have found us," Arya said grimly, appearing at the cave entrance. "We need to go now." Lara and Xander followed Arya back to the ship, the old man's words still ringing in their ears. As they blasted off into the depths of space, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that the true challenge was yet to come. The shadows were deepening, and the secrets of Dr. Voss's weapon were still tantalizingly out of reach. Chapter 7. The Price of Power. The old man's cryptic words haunted Lara as they raced through the stars, the Zorgon ships hot on their heels. She turned the ancient device over in her hands, tracing the intricate carvings with her fingertips, as if they held the answers she sought. "We need a plan," Xander said, his brow furrowed with concern. "We can't keep running forever." Arya nodded, her eyes fixed on the star-studded void ahead. "There's a remote outpost on the edge of the Orion Nebula. It's a haven for those who wish to stay hidden. We can lay low there and try to decipher the clues we've gathered." Lara felt a flicker of hope. The old man said the weapon comes with a terrible price. We need to find out what that means before we go any further. As they approached the outpost, a sense of unease settled over the crew. The station was a ramshackle collection of modules and docking bays, cobbled together from scavenged parts and salvaged ships. It was a place where secrets were bought and sold, and trust was a rare commodity. They docked their ship and ventured into the dimly lit corridors of the outpost, keeping a wary eye out for trouble. Arya led them to a seedy bar where shady characters huddled over drinks and whispered in the shadows. In a dimly lit corner, they found a wizened old woman, her eyes glittering with a hint of madness. "You seek the weapon of the Galactic Crucible," she rasped, her voice barely above a whisper. "But do you understand the price of such power?" Lara leaned in closer, her heart pounding. "What do you mean? What price?" The old woman's gaze bore into her soul. The weapon was forged in the heart of a dying star, imbued with the essence of creation and destruction. To wield it is to become both savior and destroyer, to hold the fate of the galaxy in your hands. Lara felt a chill run down her spine. "What must we do?" The old woman's voice dropped to a whisper. "To unlock the weapon's true power, you must gather 3 artifacts scattered across the galaxy. Only then can you hope to stand against the might of the Zorgon Empire." As they left the bar, Lara's mind raced with the implications of the old woman's words. The price of power was high, but the alternative was unthinkable. They had to keep fighting, no matter the cost. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Zorgon ships had breached the perimeter, their soldiers flooding the corridors like a relentless tide. Lara and her crew fought their way back to their ship, blasters blazing and hearts pounding. They barely made it out alive, the outpost exploding behind them in a blaze of fire and debris. As they hurtled through the stars once more, Lara felt a grim sense of determination settle over her. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but they had no choice. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they were the only ones who could tip the scales. Lara turned to her crew, her eyes blazing with resolve. "We have our mission. We'll find the artifacts and unlock the weapon's power, and when the time comes, We'll make the Zorgans pay for every life they've taken, every world they've destroyed. We'll show them what it means to be human, to fight for what we believe in, even in the face of impossible odds." As the stars streaked past their ship, Lara knew that the true test was yet to come. But with her crew by her side and the hope of humanity burning bright within them, she knew they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Galactic Crucible awaited, and they would not be found wanting. Chapter 8. The Gathering Storm. Lara and her crew raced through the stars, their ship battered but unbroken, their spirits tested but unwavering. The old woman's words echoed in Lara's mind, a constant reminder of the daunting task that lay ahead. 3 artifacts, scattered across the vast expanse of the galaxy, each one a key to unlocking the weapon's true power. "Where do we start?" Xander asked, his voice tinged with a mix of determination and uncertainty. Arya pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy, her fingers dancing across the controls. "The first artifact is said to be hidden on the planet Zephyr, in the heart of the Whispering Jungle. It's a dangerous place, filled with ancient ruins and deadly predators." Lara nodded, her jaw set with grim resolve. "Then that's where we'll go. We've come too far to turn back now." As they approached Zephyr, the planet's lush green surface seemed to beckon them, a deceptive beauty hiding untold dangers. They landed in a clearing amidst the towering trees, the air thick with the scent of exotic flora and the distant cries of strange creatures. Lara and her crew set out into the jungle, their weapons at the ready, their senses heightened by the constant threat of the unknown. The ruins of an ancient civilization loomed before them, crumbling stone structures overtaken by the relentless growth of the jungle. In the heart of the ruins, they found the artifact, a small pulsing orb that seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy. But as Lara reached out to take it, a fierce roar shattered the silence, and a monstrous creature emerged from the shadows, its eyes blazing with primal fury. The battle was fierce and brutal, the creature's strength and speed matched only by the crew's determination and skill. In the end, they emerged victorious, the artifact clutched tightly in Lara's hand, but not without a heavy price. One of their own lay dead, a sobering reminder of the sacrifices they would have to make. As they returned to their ship, Lara felt the weight of her fallen comrade's death pressing down on her shoulders. But she knew there was no time for grief, no room for doubt. The Zorgons were still out there, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. "We'll honor our fallen by finishing what we started," Lara said, her voice steady and strong. "We'll find the other artifacts, and we'll make the Zorgans pay for every life they've taken." As they set course for the next planet, a sense of grim determination settled over the crew. They had faced their first trial and emerged stronger for it, but the true test was yet to come. The Galactic Crucible awaited, and they would not rest until they had unlocked its secrets and secured the future of humanity. In the shadows of space, the Zorgon fleet gathered, their ships bristling with weapons and their hearts filled with a ruthless hunger for conquest. They too had heard the whispers of the weapon, and they would stop at nothing to claim it for themselves. The stage was set for a clash of titans, a battle that would shape the fate of the galaxy for generations to come. Lara and her crew were the last hope, the flickering flame of humanity's resistance against the darkness. They would fight, they would bleed, and they would never surrender, for in their hands lay the destiny of all that they held dear. The gathering storm was upon them, and they would meet it head-on, with courage in their hearts and fire in their eyes. The Galactic Crucible called, and they would answer, no matter the cost. Chapter 9. The Price of Victory. The artifact pulsed with an eerie light as Lara held it in her hands, the weight of their fallen comrade's sacrifice heavy on her heart. The crew of the Galactic Crucible had emerged victorious from the ruins of Zephyr, but the cost had been high. As they set course for the next planet, a somber silence settled over the ship, broken only by the hum of the engines and the distant beeping of the navigation systems. Lara stared out into the vast expanse of space, her mind racing with thoughts of the challenges that lay ahead. The Zorgons were hot on their trail, their ships growing closer with each passing moment. She knew that they would stop at nothing to claim the weapon for themselves, and the thought of facing them again sent a chill down her spine. "We need to be prepared," she said, turning to face her crew. "The Zorgons will be waiting for us, and we can't afford to let our guard down." Xander nodded, his eyes hardening with determination. "We'll be ready. We've come too far to let them win now." As they approached the next planet, a sense of unease settled over the crew. The world was shrouded in a thick, poisonous atmosphere, its surface a twisted landscape of jagged rocks and bubbling pools of acid. The second artifact was said to be hidden deep within a network of underground caves, guarded by ancient traps and deadly creatures. Lara and her crew donned their protective gear and set out into the treacherous depths, their weapons at the ready. The caves were a maze of twisting tunnels and hidden chambers, each one more dangerous than the last. They fought their way through hordes of grotesque creatures, their skin sizzling from the acidic fumes that filled the air. At last, they reached the chamber where the artifact was hidden, a glowing orb that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. But as Lara reached out to take it, a sudden rumble shook the cave, and a massive creature emerged from the shadows, its eyes blazing with a primal fury. The battle was fierce and brutal, the creature's strength and speed matched only by the crew's determination and skill. They fought with everything they had, their weapons flashing in the dim light of the cave. But just as victory seemed within reach, the creature lashed out with a final desperate attack, and Xander was caught in its grasp. Lara watched in horror as her friend was dragged into the darkness, his screams echoing through the tunnels. She raced after him, her heart pounding in her chest, but it was too late. Xander was gone, and the artifact lay shattered on the ground, its power lost forever. As they emerged from the caves, battered and bruised, Lara felt a wave of despair wash over her. They had lost another member of their crew, and the weapon was still incomplete. The Zorgons were closing in, and time was running out. But as she looked around at the faces of her remaining crew members, she saw a fierce determination in their eyes. They had come too far to give up now, and they would not let Xander's sacrifice be in vain. "We keep going," Lara said, her voice steady and strong. "We find the last artifact, and we finish what we started, for Xander and for all those who have fallen." As they set course for the final planet, the crew of the Galactic Crucible steeled themselves for the battle to come. They had paid a heavy price for their victories, but they would not falter. The fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders, and they would bear that burden to the end. The Zorgon fleet loomed on the horizon, a gathering storm that threatened to engulf them all. But Lara and her crew would meet it head-on, with courage in their hearts and fire in their eyes. The Galactic Crucible called, and they would answer, no matter the cost. For in their hands lay the destiny of all that they held dear, and they would not rest until the galaxy was safe once more. Chapter 10. The Final Piece. The crew of the Galactic Crucible emerged from the warp jump, their eyes fixed on the planet before them. It was a world of swirling storms and jagged peaks, its surface a chaotic tapestry of light and shadow. Somewhere on that tumultuous world lay the final artifact, the key to completing the weapon that could turn the tide of the war against the Zorgons. Lara stood on the bridge, her gaze unwavering as she studied the readouts on the display. The planet's atmosphere was a maelstrom of energy, its magnetic fields so strong that they threatened to tear the ship apart. But they had no choice. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they could not turn back now. "Prepare for landing," she said. her voice steady despite the tension that coiled in her gut. "We're going in." The ship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere, the hull groaning under the strain of the planet's violent winds. Lara gripped the console, her knuckles turning white as she fought to keep the ship on course. Beside her, the crew worked frantically to maintain the shields and stabilize the engines, their faces etched with grim determination. At last, they broke through the clouds and emerged into a world of chaos. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the twisted landscape below. Jagged spires of rock rose from the ground, like the teeth of some monstrous beast, their surfaces slick with rain and crackling with energy. Lara brought the ship down in a sheltered valley, the landing gear sinking into the soft, spongy ground. As the engines powered down, she turned to face her crew, her eyes blazing with resolve. "This is it," she said, her voice ringing out in the sudden silence. "The final piece of the puzzle. We've come too far to fail now." They set out into the storm, their suits shielding them from the worst of the planet's fury. The wind howled around them, tearing at their clothes and threatening to knock them off their feet. But they pressed on, driven by a sense of purpose that burned within them like a flame. The artifact was hidden deep within a labyrinth of caves, its twisting passages lit by the eerie glow of bioluminescent fungi. They navigated the maze with grim determination, their weapons at the ready as they scanned the shadows for any sign of danger. But the caves were not empty. Strange creatures lurked in the darkness, their eyes glinting with a feral intelligence. They attacked without warning, their claws and fangs tearing at the crew's suits. Lara and her team fought back with a savage fury, their weapons flashing in the gloom as they cut down their attackers one by one. At last, they reached the chamber where the artifact lay, a shimmering orb that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Lara reached out to take it, her heart pounding in her chest. But as her fingers closed around the artifact, a sudden tremor shook the cave, and a voice echoed through the chambers, cold and cruel. "You have fought well, humans," it said, its tone dripping with contempt. "But your struggle is in vain. The Zorgans have already claimed the weapon, and soon the galaxy will be ours." Lara's blood ran cold as she realized the truth. The Zorgons had been one step ahead of them all along, manipulating them like pawns in a cosmic game. But she would not let them win. Not now, not ever. "We'll see about that," she growled, her grip tightening on the artifact. "We've come too far to let you take this from us." With a roar of defiance, she charged forward, her crew at her side. They would fight to the last. They would give everything they had to keep the weapon out of Zorgon hands. For in that moment, they knew that the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders, and they would not let it fall. The final battle had begun, and the crew of the Galactic Crucible would meet it head-on, with courage in their hearts and fire in their eyes. The future was theirs to shape, and they would not rest until the galaxy was safe once more. Chapter 11. The Final Battle. The Zorgon's words echoed through the chamber, a chilling reminder of the true nature of their quest. Lara and her crew stood frozen for a moment, the weight of their realization settling upon them like a suffocating blanket. But they didn't have time to dwell on the betrayal. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and the walls of the cave started to crack and crumble. "We need to get out of here," Lara shouted, clutching the artifact tightly to her chest. "Move!" The crew raced through the collapsing tunnels, dodging falling rocks and leaping over widening chasms. The creatures that had once stalked them now fled in terror, their primal instincts warning them of the impending doom. Lara and her team burst out of the cave just as it imploded behind them, a plume of dust and debris billowing into the stormy sky. But their relief was short-lived. As they stumbled onto the planet's surface, they found themselves surrounded by a legion of Zorgon warriors, their weapons trained on the battered human crew. At their center stood a towering figure, his armor a twisted mass of jagged metal and pulsing energy. "You have something that belongs to us," the Zorgon leader hissed, his voice a guttural rumble. "Hand over the artifact, and your deaths will be swift." Lara's grip tightened on the orb, her jaw clenched in defiance. "You'll have to pry it from my cold, dead hands," she spat. The Zorgon leader laughed, a harsh, grating sound that sent shivers down the crew's spines. "That can be arranged." With a roar of fury, the Zorgons charged forward, their weapons blazing with searing light. Lara and her crew met them head-on, their own weapons flashing in the chaotic fray. They fought with a savage determination, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The battle raged across the planet's surface, the storm above mirroring the chaos below. Lightning flashed and thunder boomed, the elements themselves seeming to take sides in the epic struggle. Lara wove through the fray, her movements a blur of speed and precision as she cut down Zorgon after Zorgon. But for every enemy they felled, two more seemed to take their place. The crew was battered and bloodied, their suits torn and their weapons running low on power. They knew they couldn't hold out much longer. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the artifact in Lara's hands. The orb pulsed with a brilliant, otherworldly energy, its power coursing through her veins like liquid fire. She felt a surge of strength, a clarity of purpose that burned away all doubt and fear. With a cry of defiance, Lara raised the artifact high above her head. The light intensified, growing brighter and brighter until it engulfed the entire battlefield. The Zorgons screamed in agony, their armor melting away and their weapons crumbling to dust. The ground shook and the sky split open, the very fabric of reality seeming to tear apart at the seams. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. The light faded, and the battlefield fell silent. Lara and her crew stood alone amidst the wreckage, their enemies vanquished and the artifact thrumming with quiet power in her hands. They had won. Against all odds, they had kept the weapon out of Zorgon hands and secured the future of the galaxy. But as they looked out over the devastated landscape, they knew that their journey was far from over. The war still raged on, and there were countless battles yet to be fought. But for now, they could rest. They could heal their wounds and gather their strength, secure in the knowledge that they had struck a blow for freedom and justice that would echo throughout the stars. The crew of the Galactic Crucible had proven themselves to be more than just underdogs. They were heroes, and their legend would endure long after they were gone. With weary smiles and heavy hearts, they turned their faces to the sky and set a course for home, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. Chapter 12. Homecoming and Legacy. As the crew of the Galactic Crucible approached Earth, a sense of bittersweet nostalgia washed over them. The blue-green planet, once a distant memory during their harrowing journey, now welcomed them with open arms. The scars of their battles, both physical and emotional, were still fresh, but the warmth of home beckoned them, promising solace and rest. Lara, standing at the helm of the ship, gazed upon the world she had fought so hard to protect. The artifact, now safely stored away, had granted them victory, but the cost had been high. Friends had been lost, alliances tested, and the very fabric of their reality had been strained to its breaking point. Yet, as they descended through the Earth's atmosphere, the weight of their sacrifices seemed to lift, replaced by a profound sense of accomplishment and pride. The ship touched down on the surface, and the crew emerged to a hero's welcome. Thousands of people had gathered to greet them, their faces alight with joy and gratitude. Children waved flags bearing the emblem of the Galactic Crucible, while adults cheered and wept with relief. The crew, battered and exhausted, found themselves overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support. Lara, stepping forward to address the crowd, found herself at a loss for words. How could she convey the magnitude of their journey, the depth of their sacrifice? But as she looked out at the sea of faces, she realized that words were unnecessary. The people understood, for they had lived through the same fear and uncertainty, the same desperate hope for salvation. "We have fought for our future," Lara began, her voice quiet but firm. "We have faced the darkness and emerged victorious. But this is not the end of our struggle. There will be more challenges ahead, more battles to be fought. But we have proven that humanity, when united by a common cause, is a force to be reckoned with. We have shown that even the most insurmountable odds can be overcome, that even the darkest of times can give way to hope." As Lara spoke, the crowd fell silent, hanging on her every word. And as she looked around at her crew, at the faces of those who had been through hell and back with her, she felt a swell of pride and love that threatened to overwhelm her. "We are the Galactic Crucible," she declared, her voice ringing out across the gathered masses. "We are the protectors of our world, the guardians of our future, and we will never stop fighting for what is right, no matter the cost." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices rising in a deafening roar, and as Lara and her crew stood there basking in the adulation of their people, they knew that their journey had been worth it. They had become more than just a crew, more than just friends. They were a family, bound by the unbreakable bonds of shared experience and sacrifice. In the years that followed, the legend of the Galactic Crucible only grew. The crew became symbols of hope and resilience, their story inspiring generations of humans to reach for the stars and never give up in the face of adversity. The artifact, now safely guarded in a secret location, remained a reminder of the power that lay within the human spirit, the power to overcome, to endure, to triumph. And though the war against the Zorgons still raged on, the people of Earth knew that they had a fighting chance. They had the Galactic Crucible, and they had the indomitable will of humanity. Together, they would face whatever challenges the future might bring, secure in the knowledge that they were not alone, that they were part of something greater than themselves. And so, the crew of the Galactic Crucible took their place in history, their names etched forever in the annals of human achievement. They had come home, but their journey was far from over. For as long as there were battles to be fought and worlds to be saved, they would be there, ready to answer the call and fight for the future of humanity, no matter the odds.